Greetings and welcome. So my name is Brian Waddy. I'm here to give a tutorial on my curriculum template. This is August 2013. So I do plan on making revisions to this in all sorts of capacities, so it'll have increased functionality. But the page that you want to start on is the details page, although I have intentionally made some of these other tabs kind of take precedence to that because this will be the default view will be some of these other tabs. But let me walk you around what this details page is first of all, and just explain what this does so you can actually find out whether or not you're interested in this for use in your classroom. So what I've got here is you can kind of pick your course name, what days it runs, and what period it runs, as well as the semester. And if you notice, as I change semester, you actually see that the calendar dates over here automatically shift. So all of this is pre-programmed in. It has our school calendar. All of the holidays and weekends will automatically be skipped, and all sorts of things like that. Now, what you've got here is a series of columns, and you can actually essentially, my rule of thumb is don't edit any of the grayed out cells. So all of these are formulas over here, as well as this, and these are dependent names that are required in order to find some of it enables some of the functionality a little bit later on in the video. But what you can do is you can add any columns you want. I end up having other ones over here of textbooks that I use and warm-ups and links to assessments. And you can actually add hyperlinks using some hyperlink functions there as well. So you can link out to YouTube videos or Khan Academy, whatever you might find. But what I've got here is I basically have an objective. You could change this to essential questions or things like that if you want. And you end up being able to edit all of these different topics. And you can then, for each of your topics, pick how many days that it runs. So notice if I change this to 3 days, you'll see that the calendar shifts accordingly. It'll show you the day that you're finishing. And you can end up adding in all sorts of different assignments, your classwork, your homework, whatever else you have going on. And then one of the new things I added this year is the ability to have an agenda per day. And you can have up to 5 different activities and specific lengths of time that those activities take to occur. And where this ends up showing up, well, it pulls data from here, it pulls data from what period you're running, what days you're running, and it puts it into this format for the next week, this week tab, and this is going to be the default display for students and teachers if you end up wanting it. And if you scroll down, it actually automatically figures out what the most recent or most current Monday is. The transition occurs on Mondays, so that way if a student's looking at this on a Saturday night or a Sunday night, it's still going to show the previous week's assignments, because chances are on Sunday night a student would be interested in what their Friday night's homework is, and I wouldn't want them to accidentally look at the next Friday's homework. But if you scroll down, you can see that it actually ends up making a nice little layout once we actually hit our first day of school. It tells you what day of the course you're on, what schedule we're running, what time you're running, so that's based off of the period you selected, and how much time that is, and that's based on the period as well as what schedule you're running. And since the period starts at 10:06 in this case, it actually has the start of our first activity, second activity, and so forth, and you can have up to 5 activities running there. It automatically pulls what your objective is and your classwork and your homework and things like that. There's a little bit more detail showing up on this next week page, which is, by default always going to be the week after the one we're currently in, so students could look ahead. And you can see here's day 2. It's an A-day schedule, 125 or an hour and 25 minutes, and it's got kind of our whole little thing laid out there. And some of this is customizable. You can see that if you happen to have a longer text block, it'll actually auto-adjust for that and take care of that. And you can also see that, for instance, this particular Friday, we're running a different schedule and it even tells you that there's a class meeting going on that day. So the start of the period has shifted, the length of the period has changed, but it all accounts for that still within your agenda. Now, if you weren't interested in having it display your objective, your classwork, homework, and in my case, I've got side quests that I give, on the this week page, on the Monday, there's actually, you'll spot these little triangle arrows that you can pull down. And what it does is it populates this list using all of the titles on your details page. So if you ended up making a custom title here or increasing your own column, that will show up in your pull-down menu. And what that ends up doing, it'll change that cell for all of the week's display. So you can see that now it's actually going to display, let's see, do I have an example? Here we go. It's displaying a standard for the lesson as well. So there is some customization that you can do there. So I usually will have it display the objective and different things like that. And then, once again, you can have it display anything. So you could have it display where in the textbook, if you use a particular textbook. In my case, I use up to 3 different textbooks, and it will automatically pull where in the text that particular lesson is taught. So here you can see this lesson is found in section 1.5 of their Algebra 2 book. So there's all sorts of things that you can do with this, and what's great is that if the calendar was to shift for some reason, say there's a snow day or something like that, there's actually this tab here, calendar, is something that you should never edit. All of the cells are grayed out. But what it's doing is it's actually importing the cells from a master calendar that I will continue to update. And it tracks the holidays and why those are a holiday and all sorts of things like that. But if there ends up being a snow day, I can just simply add it to this list, and it will automatically update everyone's schedule, whoever is pulling from this particular format. I also am able to track all sorts of stuff regarding what days are A days and B days and stuff like that. But this is all just running in the background. This is nothing that you ever need to use. And then I also have the daily schedules running, so all of our variations, if there for some reason was an update or I needed to add one, I actually could add some to this list, and we'd then be able to have a new custom schedule running. So that's the idea, is that you can edit all sorts of stuff on this details page, and it will give you lots and lots of organization and functionality. And once you enter in information on this, it is essentially saved forever. And if, say you want to use the same, or you're teaching the same course next year, I'm going to come out with a new master calendar next year, and it will automatically adapt to that. So like I said earlier, if you want to use this for semester 2, I've already got semester 2 programmed in. Everything's here and running. Now that I've shown you the functionality of this, let's say you wanted to use this. So what you would do is, because you have no control to edit this, I'm the owner of this document, what you would do is click Make a Copy. All right, and then you would give your copy some name. So for instance, I could call it M3 for Math 3. I might say that it's running periods 2, A and B, and that's going to be running in the spring of 14. And then I'd say curriculum or something like that. And you'll save it, all right, to some degree. And what it's going to do is make your own copy of it. It'll add it to your Google Drive, and it's taken just a moment to update this. And now this is something that's editable by you. Now, once again, you shouldn't go and change the contents of many of these cells. The only thing you should be changing is your Details tab and then these pull-down menus. If you change some of these cells, you can see up here I've got formulas that are quite lengthy and complicated, and are you're going to break the functionality of the worksheet. One of the things actually I also want to point out is there's this Week Of tab. If, for instance, you wanted to fast forward to a particular week, these are all the Mondays throughout the whole school year is what these are. So you could pick a particular week, and it will then auto give you that week's information. So you can see, oh, day 6 of the course, and the schedules were running, and everything like that. So this is in my mind, a very useful tool. Here it's even telling us, oh, we've got picture day that day, we've got a faculty meeting that Monday, all sorts of things. So now if you wanted to edit this, click on the Details tab, and this is where, like I said, you can have anything that you want. So if you want to insert your own column here, you could insert a column and say reading assignment or something like that, and then you could say, I don't know, like Charlotte's, I don't know how to spell Charlotte's apparently, Charlotte's Web pages, say, I don't know, 84 through 102 or something like that. And now that's saved there, and if I wanted, I could actually have reading assignment be one of my little tabs that I pull up. Let's see, so here's reading assignment. You see I made my own column, and I do that, and let's see, actually, what week did I type that under? There we go. So you see the reading assignment showed up under that particular day in that little category. Now, as you go throughout the year, all you have to do is keep adding new days. So adding this days column will add a new day here. If you want to go through your whole course and plan ahead, you can say, you know, I teach this one concept and it takes maybe 4 days and something like that. And that's okay to start with, but it will end up messing up your functionality for the calendar. So let me show you. Say I make this 2 days for this particular lesson. If I go and show, that would be under next week. This day is blank. It happens to be Labor Day. But it ends up having an extra blank day because there's no information in cells for that second day. Or that's actually skipping the first day technically. Right? There is a day of school on September 3rd, but this is only showing September 4th. So the way you would eventually want to update that is, say I wanted a second day for this category, is you'd click on the cell either. You could click on that row itself and just insert a row below, insert one below, and I could then say this is solving equations day 2 or something like that, and I would give it its own day. Now if you notice, it didn't actually fix this here because we inserted a row. These formulas actually do not exist. So if you end up inserting days like that rather than just always at the bottom, what you will need to do, all right, and I'm going to go through this slowly, is above, actually, as a matter of fact, anywhere above the row you inserted, you'll highlight the 3 cells for this formula, and if you see, if I move to the edge, I've got a hand. That means I'm going to drag and drop it, which I do not want to do. I'm going to move down to the corner, the lower right, until I see this black plus sign. And if I click and drag, at least overlapping the cell that I inserted, the row that I inserted, it will end up copying that formula over those cells. And you see that it automatically pulled that and changed that to a Wednesday. And by doing that, now I can actually have solving equations day 2 and solving equations day 1 showing up as 2 separate things. So eventually you would want to go through and have each row having its own day. And also by having its own day, then that means you could have its own homework assignment. So, so for instance, if I wanted to assign page 31, 43 to 57 odd on that day, now I have a separate assignment showing up for that day, which is much more helpful than having to try to fit everything in one day. So you can see I've got 2 separate homework assignments for the same thing. So that's kind of most of the functionality. Then, as I said, you can go through and actually change the times, how long it takes to do something. So maybe for the first 20 minutes, I want them to do a partner activity. Activity, there we go. And then I'm going to do a 30-minute lesson continuing solving equations. And then I want to do a 20-minute gallery walk. Or whatever you end up wanting to add to this is completely up to you. I do currently have it limited to just 5 activities. If for some reason there's a request that you have for more, I actually can add it, but I think for the sake of keeping our weeks small, for our little weekly schedule, I'm just going to keep it to 5 now. But I'm willing to do any custom work that you'd need if you want to add stuff. Or if if for some reason, these 3 down here is not enough for you, I actually could program it so you have a 4th or a 5th or however many you'd need. And you can see that it automatically figures out the schedule, how long we have, and the time lengths of those activities. It's taken into account and tells you when you should start each of your new activities. And then 11:02 here is when the gallery walk ends. And I can notice, 11:02 is when that ends. Class ends at 11:17. I technically have 15 minutes more that I could schedule or something like that. However, let's say this for some reason got bumped and now it lands on a half day or my period's shorter. This doesn't take into account whether there's an overlap or not. So if there's an overlap, you'd have to be intuitive enough to know that. I mean, I was thinking of having that functionality show up, but I didn't think that it would be necessary. I figured people can kind of customize it as they need to. So on the details view, as you look here, I've got a read first little set, and there's just kind of some descriptions explaining most of this, and chances are, let's see, actually I happen to have my email here, and I'll also have a link to this very video that you're watching. That means you successfully got here somehow. That will be showing up under this little thing, watch this or something like that. And actually what I want to show you is a little bit of a more advanced variation of this. Let me pull over one of these. Will this do? So here's one of mine where I've actually already scheduled out a whole course. I haven't fit in all of the daily activities yet, but what you can see here is I've got a whole course scheduled out, and all I do is I tweak, the background calendar, and it'll instantly tell me when my final exam is landing. So for instance, okay, I'm teaching the same course semester 2, automatically shifts, my final exam happens to land on June 11th in this case. Some additional really cool functionality, I happen to record lessons of mine, so you can see I actually have hyperlinks over my homework assignments because I happen to record myself going over those particular problems on homework. And so you can actually add hyperlinks, and here is a video of me explaining how to do that stuff. So, so that ends up being really helpful for students. They can click on those hyperlinks and it all works out. So here's me teaching those exact examples, all sorts of good stuff. Yeah, and that's great for kids that are either stuck on that homework that night, or kids that fell behind and all sorts of things like that. Also, if I scroll over, I happen to have my own links for my lessons. I also linked in Khan Academy videos and his skill practice activities that he does. I linked in CUDA worksheets, CUDA software worksheets, which are just a website that has a lot of math problems on it. Anything you can think of, you could end up adding into this. I actually end up, for some warm-up activities, I even have some TED Talks or some videos of Mythbusters where it summarizes something that utilizes the skill that I teach, and I'll use it as an intro. So including hyperlinks is really helpful. I'll just show you a real quick example of how to do that. So if you hit equals, hyperlink, open parenthesis, actually you can see it tells you it needs a URL and it needs cell text. So for instance, the URL has to be in quotes, so I could say www. And I could say google.com, for instance. And now if I hit comma, it's asking for the text that will be there. I believe this also needs quotes around it, double quotes. So I could say Google and close parentheses and hit enter. And you see now it has the text that I specified, but it also added the hyperlink there. And that's all sorts of good stuff too. Now, what I end up doing with this is you could just use this for your own planning and your own benefit. But I actually share this as a Google Doc with my students and their parents. So if you're ready to do that, I mean, you don't have to, obviously, your first year. You could just use this as your own template and lesson plan book / curriculum map. But if you wanted to, you could click File, Share. You should be listed as the owner. And what you could do to invite people, let's say I wanted to invite Brian Waddy at gmail.com. And you would list all of your student emails in here and things like that. And then one of the things you're going to have to be very cautious of is do not give them the privilege of editing your curriculum map. That would be very frustrating. So you could have can view as being a possibility. And what that ends up meaning is that they can look at it, but they can't edit any of the cells, which is what you want. So that means they can, when they click on it, they will end up, coming and looking at exactly the same thing, and they'll have the this week view, and you would control whatever you want them to see, and all sorts of stuff like that. Now they technically can look at the detailed view as well if, for instance, they wanted to find some additional resources that weren't in the weekly calendar view. But that's pretty much everything. You can actually see I even link in kneecap questions that are related to this. So all sorts of good stuff. I hope that this is helpful. So I'll share this with you. Email me if you have any questions or comments, any functionality you'd like me to add that would be helpful to you in your class. Please let me know. And thanks. Have a great day.